Hello. Hello.
Morning.
Hello. Fantastic. So here we are, final demo of the year. And Skabek, would you like to give us a demo?
I could try. I feel like things changed overnight and things have either broken or new things have popped in, which I'm just kind of like scatterbrained at the moment. But I figured I would try to give an overview as to what we are chasing currently and the options that we've started to explore, but we haven't finished exploring, or we haven't finished walking through all the use cases here. So the problem that we are trying to solve is setting up a Redis cluster in a way in which we could migrate data between our existing virtual machine cluster to one that's operating inside of Kubernetes. The challenge here is that we want to wire up them together such that when we do the migration, we don't have to worry about stopping Redis, copying data over, starting it up, and then reconnecting GitLab to the other Redis, but instead we kind of just wire Redis together such that data is always syncing between the two. And then at some point in time, we tell all of our environments to use the Redis that's located in Kubernetes, and then we could shut down the virtual machines. So the problems that we need to figure out is how to connect to these instances. So that's one of the pieces of information that I've been trying to sort out. So I want to showcase, if I can, one of our options that we are currently going down the rabbit hole with. So let me pods, and then on this one, service. So I've got this is a Minikube environment, and I've got two Redis clusters rolling right now just for the purposes of testing. So Redis cluster that's prefixed with A currently has console tied to it. So I'll get to that in a second. The Redis cluster that's prefixed with the letter B is the one where it's just kind of Redis. And our goal here is to create a service for each pod that gets created. You'll notice in the pane above that we've got 3 Redis nodes because we asked for 3 replicas. By default, with the Redis Helm chart, you only get 2 services. You get the load balancer service, which I'm unable to grab an external IP because I'm inside of Minikube. And we get a headless service. So one of our options to expose all the red eye to everyone such that we can make connections to whichever one is primary without having to worry about the services, because these services contain, if I do a endpoints, you'll notice these contain every single Redis. However, our application does not support the ability to speak to every single Redis to make the necessary write or read requests appropriately. We kind of have to talk to just the primary. But because these 2 services expose all of them, that's going to initiate a problem where we initiate a write request, and if it does that, if it by chance does not land on the primary Redis node, that write will get denied, and that will be problematic. So the goal for us was to, let's see if we can figure out a way to expose all the Redis pods, and we've made a change to the upstream Helm chart to allow that. This is currently in a proposal phase. I just got the services created not terribly long ago, but you'll notice they point to specific pod IPs, and so like Redis node 0 has an IP of 41 for some reason, and you'll notice this one has an IP of 41. So I know that the service is directly connected to a pod, and these are IP addresses that we feed into our Helm chart. So we're on a good stint so far. So if I open up a shell here, and if I do a Redis CLI to one of these hosts, so be Redis 0, and if I go to the port that's specific to what do you call it, Sentinel, and you go, there we go, and if I do a, was it Sentinel master, my master, we'll see that we have two secondaries, and that one of these is the primary. 1096.10.10. Well, that doesn't seem right. 10.10. That's a console. No, it's 236. Okay, so I don't know where it's grabbing that IP address. So we're doing good so far. I'm still trying to figure this out. But we do have the ability to connect through one of these services, which is good, which is what we are trying to shoot for at the moment in time. So for that part, we're A-okay. There's still more things we need to figure out and work through, but at least we can connect to it. I don't know if this is a good solution or not, and we also have to rely on the fact that we're making this upstream change to the Bitnami Helm chart in order to make this workable. So we'll see how that goes. Does anyone have any questions about that so far, or did I just blabber on and make no sense? Okay.
I do have a question. No, yes. I'll stop. I have a question. So, so here you are using two, if I understood correctly, two different deployment of Redis, which are, and then you're trying to connect from one to the other one.
Well, no, in this particular case, I've got two Redis clusters because I'm testing two different implementations.
Okay.
But inside of our environments4.com, we have our virtual machines as Redis clusters, and we are introducing a Redis cluster inside of Kubernetes. We need to wire those together. So we need to figure out how to make sure they all can connect appropriately to each other.
Yeah, because my question was about the test that you made. So you were connecting into the cluster, but from where? Is from your local machine?
I've just got this random pod sitting inside of my Kubernetes cluster. It's not doing anything.
Okay. But networking inside Kubernetes is supposed to give you pod-to-pod networking.
Yes.
So wouldn't be more, say, representative of the actual experiment if you could connect from outside of it?
Oh yeah, well this is Minikube, so like I don't really have a quick and easy way outside of, say, port forwarding to connect inside of this cluster. That's why I was just using this random pod just to prove that I could at least hit the external facing IP address, make that connection, and prove that I could query Redis in that particular case. Obviously, when I get to a point where I could test this out in, say, inside of pre, for example, we would get to that point. But these upstream Helm chart changes they exist on a branch somewhere. So we don't have this deployed inside of any environment for me to test quickly yet.
Okay. But so you were connecting using the internal pod IP address or an external available address? So let's say the address of the Minikube installation. And a specific port.
The external IP address. So if I go down here, go to service, we've got
96. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 1096. Yeah, I remember. Okay, fine, understood. Thank you.
Okay, that's where that IP address came from. I knew I was right with this. Redis CLI.
Yeah, you were exporting the external one. Yeah, which is expected.
Which is precisely what we want. And there's two changes to make that happen. One, we had to modify a Redis configuration inside the config map. That way, that IP address is what gets exposed, and not, say, the pod
the internal
IP
one.
Yeah. Because we won't, like, we could route to it, but like no one knows what that is. so these 244 addresses. I mean, this is Minikube realm. But stuff like that is going to change often anytime a pod gets rotated. Whereas if we control the IP addresses that we assign the service, and we control what IP addresses get added to our own personal configurations, we will always be connected to a pod. Even if that underlying pod gets rotated, the IP address doesn't change. Therefore, when a pod gets rotated, we don't need to make further changes to the Rails application.
Can you go back
Redis
to
in
the
that case during a migration?
Can you please go back to the endpoint window? You have a window with the list of endpoints before.
Oh yeah,
there was a cute dog that appeared for a moment, and you wrote something.
Endpoints.
Yeah, this one. Oh, now we also have a cow. Perfect.
Endpoints.
So yeah, there was something here. Yeah, when you were mentioning that headless, that one is interesting to me. Oh, but this one is exposing internal addresses. Because if I do remember how Sentinel behaves, you basically connect to any, so it's part of the protocol itself. So when you connect to any node, it should tell you, no, you should redirect this connection to this one, which is the current master. But it gives you the internal.
And this is where we made changes to the Redis configuration such that it's saying, hey, when we query Sentinel for whoever is primary or secondary, give us this IP address, which is the IP address we control.
Okay. No, I was thinking something is slightly different, but okay, I understood what you're doing. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So again, all that's a work in progress.
Actually, I'll ask at the end. Mine's more discussion. Keep going.
Yeah, so again, this is a work in progress. Both Sean and I are kind of making changes to the Helm chart. This is still subject to Bitnami accepting this style of change. Don't know if this is the right way to go about this, but this seems like the most logical because we are still in the majority of control where we don't have like service discovery running rampant everywhere, which leads to my next demo of console. So you'll also notice up here, I've got a cluster prefixed with A. In fact, let me go to pause just to show that there's a difference between the way that these are deployed. I've got console running inside this cluster. So this varies significantly with how we run console today, just by the fact that we run console inside of virtual machines currently. The only thing we've got running console inside of our clusters is for the purposes of DNS resolution. So there's just an agent running. It doesn't do anything super exciting. It runs on every single node. I enabled console just to get something running for local testing, and I enabled what they call the Connect Injector. And what this enables you to do is you create a special annotation inside of your deployment that says, "Dear console, do something to this deployment for me." And you'll notice that the B Redis nodes only have 2 pods running, whereas the A Redis nodes have 3 pods running. This is how console injects a sidecar into this deployment. So if we go inside of one of these things, you'll notice that there's an Envoy sidecar. So this is something new that we need to learn. But if we could figure this out, what we could do with this is create the necessary configuration where here, I'll actually share my other screen where I've got console showing certain things, share services. So you'll notice that there's a service called Redis, and it contains each and every single one of our pods. I don't know why it names it in this goofy way, but theoretically, we would have the ability to query Redis via console and have our application connect doing DNS resolution through console. There's still more for me to learn here. So this is what I actually wanted to showcase in this particular situation. Or if I go back down to my fake client and do a Redis CLI on, on host, let's see, a Redis. Let's just connect to kind of what I would have done if I don't precisely know how this would work, but like just guessing here, something is wrong with my ability to talk to Redis. And it actually doesn't matter who I talk to or which port I talk to. Like if I want to talk to the Sentinel port, for example, 263779. Like there's an IO error. So like with the console stuff, there's something new I need to learn where I think Envoy is getting in the way and preventing certain traffic flow from happening, which I'm kind of surprised about because my Minikube environment doesn't have anything that related to network policies that would block traffic. So there's that. Okay, so still learning, but theoretically the concepts of either connecting via console or this service thing would kind of change how we implement this entire thing, and I'm still needing to learn this. But there's also another option, which I can't demo because I know it's not working. We're leveraging something called external DNS, in which we are able to assign a deployment, or a service, a domain name, and then we could expose that domain name, and it will provide us an IP address to connect to, which seems beneficial. I'm still learning about how this works, and currently it does not work, but at least a domain name is getting created, and we have a IP address associated with it. So if I go back to my console, sorry, I'm just blabbering on. This is the worst demo ever. I'm sorry. If I refresh.
It definitely isn't. So keep going.
We should see, so we see Redis in here. There's the TXT record, and we also see, this is pre-prod where we have two Redis deployments, Redis cache and Redis rate limiting. So I was able to create DNS records for these, and if we select one, we'll get the IP address of something. I don't know what that something is just yet. But hypothetically, this does not work currently. I suspect it's probably a firewall rule that's blocking me, but theoretically, we should be able to connect to this, connect to the Sentinel port, and our application would say, "Dear Sentinel, who's the primary?" And it will return with an IP address of some pod that we should be able to have the ability to connect to, and it'll have all the necessary information such that it can connect to those Redis nodes, and the application will work. So,
Skarbek, I didn't fully get why we are aiming for console, because I mean, there's service discovery built in Kubernetes, right? With I don't know, etcd, I think. And for Redis itself, I mean, I guess that they for a reason have Sentinel, right, to use it. So I was a little bit confused what we try to achieve with console in this case.
So I looked at console because someone suggested it, and I have no problem with at least looking into it because console is an interesting project to me. I just wish we spent more time on it. The service discovery is going to be important because we have clusters that do not exist in the same, or we have applications that do not exist in the same cluster. So we've got our regional and we have our zonal clusters, right? I don't know where we're going to deploy Redis. I assume we're probably going to deploy it in probably our regional cluster because that's where we have, the most address space available for newer nodes and such. But our zonal clusters need to be able to connect to this Redis instance. So we need to have the ability to have those discoverable outside of those zonal clusters where that currently does not exist. Console could help with that. External DNS can help with that. So we've got options available to us. We just need to figure out which one's the best way to go down and like which one is going to be the most feasible.
Yeah, I think it was not about console itself, but the fact that it's integrated with Envoy that gives you a proxy out of the box,
yeah,
so you can have a service proxy
out of it. Yeah. One of the problems I have with console, despite the fact that we heavily depend on it with our Patroni and Postgres connectivity, this is not a very well maintained, well documented service. well-monitored service inside of our infrastructure. That's what kind of has me nervous about it. So I still want to check it out because we do use it, but I hesitate to want to recommend it. Okay, so I've kind of ended my demo at this point. So if anyone has any questions, let's rock it out.
If we go down the route of needing to specify IPs, so I think that's for your first demo, like how much are we, like how much work do we have to do in the future to handle scaling? Like, will it be easy to expand that range?
With the current proposal, or excuse me, let me back up a little bit. From what I've learned, and someone would need to correct me if you know on this call and please help me. But from what my knowledge so far with how GitLab utilizes Redis is that we are unable to speak to multiple Redis nodes in a cohesive manner. So unlike Patroni, where you have your primaries and your secondaries, and we control which queries go to which node depending on what type of query you're asking for, we don't have the same mechanism inside of Redis. So from my knowledge, we always connect to the primary and say, hey, give me or here's some data for you to have. There's theoretically at this moment in time no need to really care about the secondaries. In fact, the secondaries sit there for the sole purpose of being able to fail over to. Otherwise, they are a complete waste of resource, which is unfortunate given how large some of those Redis nodes are. So I don't think we need to worry about scale at this moment in time. I think we'll need to worry about scale when it gets to the point where our application is able to handle that situation better, because then our secondaries could be better utilized, and then we could spread out what Redis is actually doing, and we could accomplish a little bit more with it. I think from what I've been taught so far, the reason why we haven't gone down that route is because it's actually easier for infrastructure to spin up new clusters than it is for us to go into our application and make modifications to the way that we leverage Redis. So scale-wise, it sounds like the optimal solution is to create a new cluster, because it's easier to make the modification side of the application to say, hey, if you're this style of query, go talk to this other cluster over here with this different FQDN, for example. And for that, the scale is, I wouldn't say unlimited, but we have plenty of IP addresses to choose from because we control what those IP addresses are. The need to add additional IP addresses should not be an immediate problem because if we deploy this in our regional cluster, we have plenty of address space. If we deploy this in our zonal clusters, that's where we need to start freaking out currently. Okay. I don't think we would deploy this inside of our zonal clusters and have applications talk to just that same zone, because then we're kind of limiting what Redis is doing, and that's probably a very dangerous thing.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Okay, great. And in terms of these different options, like if all worked, if we could figure out a way to get all of them working, like is the one that's clearly better than the others, or is the one that we would prefer over others?
This is where I'll need some assistance from Sean or Igor or other persons to help test and validate which solution will be the best in the long run. I just don't have enough personal knowledge or skills with Redis to be able to answer that question today.
Yeah, that's fine. And I suspect they may not either. So it might be a good one where we may want to figure out kind of what we're evaluating on. There may not be like an obviously perfect solution. So we might want to figure out like what are the downsides we definitely want to avoid, and which are the downsides like we can live with for short term, or like offset by doing something else.
And I think Igor will be a good person to rely on for helping us make that decision, because he worked greatly with the Redis upgrades that occurred, I think it was last year. And then he's also been one of our one of our primary persons who've been adding additional clusters as we move along. So I think he's got some pretty good knowledge with how our application leverages Redis and how Redis actually gets used for .com.
Awesome.
Alessio, no, I do not have intentions configured. This is one of those
That's the
things where
reason
I'm
why
just
it's not working. It's the ACL policy of console connect. So you have to explain what is allowed to connect, and so there's it sits on top of the regular networking, has its own policies. This should be the reason why you get the IO error.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm done with demoing.
I guess what's left in your kind of your Redis investigation plan?
Lots of learning. I still want to. Our initial plan was to try to go down the route of modifying our Helm chart, and there's still a little bit more work to make that a little more friendly as a potential pull request to the Helm chart. And then testing. So learning, testing, building still.
Awesome. And in terms of getting this change into the Helm chart, this is the Bitnami Helm chart, is that right?
Yes.
Is that like how likely is this change to get in?
I don't know. I've never interacted with these persons. I'm sure Jason Plum has, so we might be able to ask him a question, or he might have a point of contact where we could be like, hey, let us know your thoughts kind of situation. So
that would be worth checking up on. Yeah. Because if it's the sort of thing that like changes like basically never get accepted or take 3 years to get accepted, then knowing that up front might help us make an alternative plan, right?
Yeah. But we still have a lot of work to do to, clean it up and make it a useful thing for the community anyway. So we got some time.
Cool. Okay, great. Nice.
Okay, so
I think you can go on to your discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, so GitLab pages, the migration is done. The only thing that's holding this issue open is this epic open is there's an issue related to profiling not working correctly, and Jacob's been helping me out with this. Do we want to just close the epic?
Well, it depends on. I mean, it's fine to keep the epic open, right? Like it would be super to have it closed like this year because it makes our metrics look super shiny, right? But let's not close it just because, just because of metrics and things. But I guess I'm just trying to find stuff. So what is the current status of the issue?
We're going to add debug logging to LabKit, which will require LabKit to be updated and tagged, and then GitLab pages needs to be updated with that new version of LabKit. We then need to deploy that new version of pages and then flip whatever flag that might be added for LabKit, if there is a flag that needs to be added for LabKit. So not a quick task.
Okay.
Not hard, just not quick. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like removing all timing considerations, this issue sits with this epic because it was one of the kind of bugs that we had following the migration. We do want to fix it. So yeah. I would say let's leave it open and maybe see what we can do to speed up the fix. So,
well, keep in mind we're just adding logging. We don't know what's wrong yet.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fine. But I mean, like, just to keep it moving forward. I think that's probably the situation. So is this still blocked?
I wouldn't say it's blocked. It's more like waiting for other people to do things.
Okay. So I'm going to take the block label off and I'll take the stored label off, right? Because I'll put the in progress because I think it is in progress. Who are the other people? that we're waiting
Jacob's
on?
been my primary person, and then I've been kind of opening up an issue GitLab pages, and whoever plucks it has been nice enough to pull it. I think Jamie, if I recall, was the last person to help me out with the last release.
Okay.
I just opened up an issue saying, hey, can we release? And they're like, yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's see if we can keep this moving forwards, because it would be super good to get this wrapped up and done and know that post migration, like everything is working as it was.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, let's see if we can keep moving this forwards. I'm happy to help coordinate, like if we are waiting on people in other teams and like we wait more than, you know, a couple of days, then let me know and I'm happy to help coordinate people.
Certainly.
Yeah. I might get in my head of myself here, but without having the logging in place already, have we got any closer to working out why this works on Workhorse but not Pages? Mysterious. Okay.
I wish I knew the answer to that question.
Yeah, I think Jakob's probably feeling the same. Okay. Well, yeah, let's keep it on the table. Keep this epic open so we've got kind of focus and see if we can actually get close to
Luckily, it's a
out.
lower priority task. It's just one of those things that, you know, it's higher than a nice to have, but lower than a high priority.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I'm going to put the P3 label on because I think it's something we don't want to live with it forever. People are not going to scream right now, but it would be good to get resolved as soon as we can.
I agree.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, good luck. Is that so? Is there anything? So Jakob's got the AMER open. Henry, are you able to give that a review?
I can already do that. Yeah.
Super. Great stuff. Because that would be, it'd be super, no pressure, but if we could get that out before the PCL, right, that gives us a little bit of time to get some
that's
data.
not going to happen. Yeah, it takes a while to go from
really?
AMER and LabKit to open it up in Pages to releasing Pages to deploy the new Pages version. It's a next year thing.
Yeah, that's a shame. Okay, all right.
Especially with all the people taking time off.
Oh, it's so inconvenient. Should we cancel Christmas?
No. You get off this call now. Do not toy with my holiday.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that'll be a fun one for us to look forward to in January, getting that wrapped up. Awesome. Is there any other stuff we could do? Like, is there anything else we can do to help there, or any other things anyone wants to go through today? Nope. Okay, awesome. In which case, I think we're done. So well done, everyone. Like, this is, I'm just writing up the delivery 2021 review stuff. Haven't yet got through to digging into the project, but I'm already excited about that stage because this year, particularly on the Kubernetes side, we migrated some massive pieces and we did it pretty quietly, and I'm not sure a lot of people actually realize, but it's really interesting to see it on the metrics. You can really clearly see, like, you know, I know exactly when. In fact, it was funny. I was like, oh, this is really strange. Like, what happened in April? And I was like, oh yeah, Graham joined the team. So that's that MTTP switch. And I was like, oh, what happened in July? Like, oh yeah, that was the API, and you can see that. And then August, you can see web, and it's huge. So brilliant progress on migrating on the Kubernetes side. What we did quite seamlessly, in fact, totally seamlessly, since Pages and Redis are both running in parallel, was one of our kind of strategy goals for this year was to by the end of Q4 to define, plan, and execute on migration of stateful services. So I think when we wrote that early in the year, we were pretty unsure, like, how would this work? What would we have to do? How would we pick a service? So I think, I know we still have a lot of bits to figure out, but we're making great progress on Redis, and really happy that we get to pair up with scalability and kind of all try and figure this stuff out together. So great progress this year. Lots of massive stuff migrated, and lots of stuff like well set up for next year as well. So with that, I hope you'll have a fantastic break. Well done. Thank you for all the hard work this year, and looking forward to seeing what we can smash out next year. Take care, everyone. Have a good holiday.
Bye.